Everyone. Welcome to this afternoon's Thrive Festival event run by the Oxford Chapter, Oxford Alumni Chapter. Just a little bit about the Oxford Alumni Chapter. It supports over 14,000 alumni in the Oxfordshire area, and it consists of 4 volunteer members, Dan O'Driscoll, who's the chapter lead, Placi Espejo, who's here as a chair, Ella Barrington, who's here as a panelist, and also Jo Parton. Tonight I'll hand over to Placi, who I said will be chairing. I'll just tell you a little bit about her. She's worked in a lot of an array of different professions. She's a mentor to to an entrepreneur society, and also she has worked in local economic development, tech transfer, and global programs promoting entrepreneurship. She's currently working for Oxford Cambridge Arc in a leadership group, Oxford Cambridge Arc Leadership Group, as a senior lead officer. Just like to note that this evening we will be recording the webinar, and there'll be an opportunity at the end to ask questions in the Q&A or chat function. I'll hand over to Placi. Welcome.
Thank you, Molly. So first of all, I have to say I've got a very husky voice. You're going to have to bear with me, but hopefully some of you, if at one point it does get a little bit crackly, I'll have to get my telemarketing headset on and do that a little bit, but we'll try without it. So good evening, everyone. And as Molly has mentioned, I'm part of the Oxford chapter with a great group of entrepreneurial-minded Brookes alumni that we've got to know each other for the past over a year now, actually, that we've been part of the chapter. I'm extremely honoured to be chairing this evening's panel. I'm also very fortunate to actually know all panellists and have learned firsthand of their efforts in supporting entrepreneurship in Oxford and beyond. Tonight's panel, in truth, it brings a plethora of real life experience in mentoring, coaching, and being a well-respected and inspiring leaders. So who better than to share their experiences and be part of our discussion that Leah and Ella, who I have known and worked with in one way or another for the past few years. Today, so this evening, we are going to run through a number of questions. The panel is going to introduce themselves. We're going to have a number of questions that are cover leadership, mentoring, coaching. They're going to bring some of their own experience. I'm going to bring some of my own experience at one point if I think that might benefit the evening. And then we will have some time for questions and answers. Molly is monitoring the chat with some other wonderful members of the team. And hopefully we will get to answer all the questions when we have time. We're aiming for the 1 hour mark. We know that we're a little bit late, so we just aim at finishing just after 6 o'clock, so around 10 past 6. Right, so without much delay, can I actually invite Leah to introduce herself and give us a little bit of a flavour of what she's been up to recently.
Placi, and it's great to be here tonight with all of you and to talk about leadership and coaching and mentorship. So I'm Leah. I'm part of Oxford University. I am an enterprise manager within the innovation and engagement team in research services, and I've been in Oxford for about 7 years. My role really is about connecting up entrepreneurship across the university, but also the local area. So again, I've worked very closely with the team at Brookes. I've worked with everybody on the panel at one point or another, and have been involved from everyone from students right up to pro-vice chancellors and then entrepreneurs in between. So I'm really excited to talk to join this discussion tonight and hopefully can share some of my experiences of both on both sides of the line, both being mentored and helping to mentor as well.
Brilliant. Thank you, Leah. Ella, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello. Again, thank you for having me. It's always an honour. I am a woman of many hats, and I think today the hat I am wearing is my associate lecturer at Oxford Brookes University hat. I did my MSc at Brookes over in the School of Engineering, the less glamorous Wheatley campus, but no it still has a wonderful kind of entrepreneurial spirit. And I got invited back nearly 4 years ago now to be part of the team that teaches engineering business management. And we're trying to do that in a really creative way. And when I think it's safe to say, when I did the course, we just wrote a lot of different essays about management styles. And actually now we're doing some really more interactive and entrepreneurial ventures with them. And actually we're starting to see kids wanting to go out and start businesses. And I think that's a really exciting change that I've seen in Brookes in the last kind of 15 years. When I'm not doing that, I am a project management and operations consultant. So I get involved in lots of different growing businesses. They only ring me when they're too busy. So I get to see lots of different leadership and mentoring and management styles. Some are great, some are less so. So hopefully that's what I can bring today.
Thank you. Whitley brings some memories from the past for me, like 20 years ago. So that's a long, long time ago. And great to see you here. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, apologies to all for being a late joiner. We seem to have some tech issues going on, but I'm now on my home computer rather than the work one, and that seems to be working. Anyway, I'm Anne Miller. I work alongside Leah actually at the University of Oxford. We started together, so we're not joined at the hip, but we've got a long history. And I've worked with Placi as well. And in fact, I'm an alum of Oxford Poly, as it was when I originally was there. Wheatley was Lady Spencer Churchill College, so that tells you just how long ago that was. But having said that, I've also had a long history of working in and with the Oxfordshire community. There's a startup that we founded about 20-something years ago at Brookes, which is still running, the EIE, the Environmental Information Exchange, which is still going strong, I think. I've had the pleasure of being both in the academic world and working with industry extensively for many years, and had a very wide-ranging portfolio, I'd say, of activities. But I've been around for a bit longer to gain a bit more variety of experience. But I'm still always learning, always developing new sets of skills and competencies. Sadly, it appears not so good on the IT anymore, but there we go. Can't have it all. So that's me, and delighted to be here. Thanks very much for inviting us.
Thank you, and it's all part of the thrill of technology nowadays. I'm working from home, so I didn't know that about Whitley, actually. I didn't know that was the previous name, so I've learned something today. We're going to go straight into the questions, and we have received a number of questions prior to today, so I'm going to go through some of them and direct them to some of you from the panel, but please, if you want to add a little bit to it, feel free to do that. So we do have a questions around skills, and it's very much around what do you think are the key skills that you need to be an effective leader. So we're gonna tackle the leadership topic first. Leah, Anne, would you like to do that one?
Well, I'll have a start, and then Anne can jump in. The one thing for me about leadership is there's so many different styles of leadership, and depending on which style you personally are or that you're affected by will kind of depend on some of those skills. But for me, one of the key things is to be able to listen, and to truly listen. It's that really active listening of being able to hear what people are saying and not be formulating the answer before you finish that discussion. I think you need to be able to listen effectively across many different people and the different things that they would say. So it's not just listening to your contemporaries, but you have to listen at all levels and making sure that you are taking that on board, adding that through your filter, and being able to make your judgments based on that. making time, I think the time management sort of thing, I think that some of the greatest leaders that I've ever worked with have always made time to have conversations, to answer questions. And so again, I mean, maybe this is sort of bleeding into the mentorship or the some of those sort of discussions, but really it's about making time. Everyone is busy, you know, no matter who you ask, everyone is going to be busy. Everyone's going to be run off their feet, but you can always find time for those that want to listen and want to do that. So maybe I'll start with those two as a starter, and Anne can pick up on any of those.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely top of my list. I build on what Leah says. Listening, I always say, you know, 2 of these, 1 of these, use them in proportion. And it's I think once you've listened well, and then you're able to really start to think about, right, as a problem solver, which is often what you are when you're a leader, you need to have really understood what the problem is in order that then you can start to take responsibility for trying to identify the ways forward. And that means being, for me, I think the skills you need are flexibility, adaptability. Being a really good team player is actually essential, I think, to being an effective leader. You don't have to, as Leah said, you can switch leadership styles, and it's actually a good idea to switch leadership styles quite a bit and be flexible depending on what the situation demands. But overall, if you're recognizing what it is that the team need, and then you can either pull somebody in or enhance that, or step up to it yourself if that's what's required. So being flexible and adaptable, I think, are really key. And I think being willing to take risks and willing to take responsibility are the other things that I think are absolutely key to being an effective leader. You know, the buck has to stop somewhere. And, you know, at the end of the day, if you're the one who's willing to say, yep, okay, I'll step up to that one. Leadership isn't always about being the sort of top banana. It's about being the person willing to take the responsibility and make sure that you're delivering, you know, and I think that's really an important element for me.
I think being able to put your hand up to say I made a mistake, I did it wrong, you gain so much respect by doing that, and it doesn't make you a less of a leader or a less of a person. What do you think, Ella?
I totally agree. I think the idea of servant leadership and showing your vulnerabilities, I think that's something that's really changed quite a lot recently. And perhaps this also, I'm so excited to be on an all-woman panel, not talking about women in business. It's so exciting. And I think perhaps that's something we will maybe see as we get more diverse leadership, is actually that kind of vulnerability. And I think you just need to be compassionate as a leader. I think you have to have compassion for other people, and you have to have compassion for yourself, because as we've all said, that buck stops with you, you know, and you are going to have a lot on your plate. Entrepreneurship is hard. You have to be brave. That is why not many people do it. And I think with that, you have to treat everybody that works with you, your customers, your suppliers, and most importantly, yourself. You have to be compassionate. I think it makes the biggest difference.
Brilliant. Thank you. Really quickly, because otherwise we're going to be I'm going to get told off by Molly, but really quickly, is there someone that has inspired you as a leader, all 3 of you? If you have got one, why? You don't have to give us a name, but just why. Go on now.
I'll kick off with the guy that I worked for. It was a man rather than a woman, but he was a great supporter of women. And he was I went to work in district audit when I finished my PhD, so that I would understand more about how the real world worked. And this guy was inspirational to me because he did all the things we've just been talking about. He had a great sense of humour, and he really understood his team, and he was so laid back, he was almost horizontal. made everything look effortless, but actually he was completely all there, but didn't do it in any sort of way that was, certainly not look at me, I'm the boss. And that was just the best person to have as an early mentor,
role model.
and exemplar.
Yeah. Leah, Ella?
I think I've got a couple, but
You don't have to come out with that one. It's only if you can think of one.
I guess it's the characteristics of them, and I've had a number. I've been very lucky to have a number of sort of managers or people that I sort of work with that I look up to and have for various reasons. But the big thing is around that, providing a space that you're safe in. That psychological safety of being able to be yourself, develop your skills, and to do that within a team or in a group is really difficult because you have so many different characters. So as I said, I've been very fortunate to have a number of sort of managers or people higher up the chain that have provided that and allowed me to develop and grow how I need to do it, as well as the colleagues around me doing the same thing in very different ways. So I think that safety, that space to grow is really, really, really key. And those are the sort of people, I don't think of sort of big names when I think of that. I think of those that are quite close, actually.
Brilliant.
I started my career in professional motorsport, and I was on race teams for a long time. And when I looked at this question earlier, I thought, professional sports, leadership, there are books and books and books written about leadership in sport. And I have to say, the more I thought about it, actually, I don't think I did work with any amazing leaders. They were generally ex-athletes who were a little bit self-obsessed. Some great fun times, but not really styles I'd want to emulate. A lot of pace setting kind of management. But then when I left motorsport, one of the first places I worked with an amazing lady, and I am going to name check her, Karen Dalglish. She's now at Neon Leaders out in Hong Kong, and she was one of the first people that taught me that you could be caring and commercial at the same time, and that made a massive impact on me. She made that time, like Leah said, she always just made time, but that gave her a commercial arsenal because she knew what was going on. She knew customers, she knew our team, and actually I think she then turned that around. I think when you're studying and thinking about leadership, you often think of good leaders being ruthless, and actually I think the best ones I've ever met are actually the opposite.
Thank you. Mine, I think, mine, if I wanted to add one, would be that one that is a natural boss, and I have a great example. I'm not going to say his name, but is one that is able to swear and be natural and not have to actually bottle things up, and you respect that way of being so authentic. So the authenticity and the natural ways of being humans, I think that I hugely respect that. We've gone into different terms for today, and one that is a bit of a confusing one is the difference between leaders and managers. So we all have managers, we all have leaders, but not many people understand the difference. And I think we may as well just actually establish the difference. Will one of you take this one, or shall I just say Anne, for example?
Leah, feel free to jump in, or Ella. For me, being a leader, I come back to, again, leadership is about something to do with vision and style and empathy and all of those things. And we all are leaders, and we lead in different ways. Management for me is much more of a mechanistic things that you're going to, a series of tasks that need to be achieved and how you're going to do those sorts of things. You can be a leader and a manager, but they are very different things that one is looking at. And being a really competent manager, you may have all sorts of skills that you learn at the business school, as it were. Leadership it's not that you can't learn how to be a better leader, but I think one learns most of leadership things through the sort of thing we've just been talking about, the experiences that we have of other people, the way we empathize with and pick up almost by osmosis. Hey, I like that. That's a really good way to treat people. And then think, all right, I'll make sure I do that. That isn't management as far as I'm concerned. I don't know what the others would say.
I think I agree. The bit with leadership, I think, is, you know, you mentioned the word vision or visionary, and I think, you know, you can be any kind of leadership style and still have that vision. You know, I think it's really important to have sort of that big vision and picture, and then as a manager, it's objectives, it's goals, it's details. I'm not saying that all leaders are blue sky thinkers and don't care about the details, and all managers are you know, heads down and stuck in it. But it's something around those sorts of things. You know, the managers are very focused on that one, you know, that process, that thing, that bit, whereas the leaders are often a little bit broader, a little bit, you know, more forward thinking, perhaps. I agree with Anne. You know, you can have managers who are leaders and leaders who are managers. The disconnect is when you have one without the other, and particularly when someone's in a leadership position when actually they're a manager. And so trying to lead when you're actually a manager is quite difficult. And the other way around, when you're a leader and you're trying to manage, is even more difficult. So I think it's not, I don't think it's a black and white line. You know, it's not one or the other. There's a lot of crossover, and I'm not sure I've actually answered the question properly or given any good details about it. But I think that, again, that manager is the, you know, managing, just as it says, a leader is leading, a manager is managing. It's bringing it all together. It's making sure it happens. The leader is sort of setting the pace and the scale and things like that.
Thank you. Ella, do you want to add anything, or would you like to, or we can jump onto the next question that we've got?
I think there were two great explanations there.
Yeah,
I think it's just really important that we acknowledge that they are different skill sets. Yeah. Because I think, again, that's something that we're not necessarily taught, and it's when you maybe meet one of these people that's in the wrong hole that you start to identify that.
Mm. And that question brings us to a debate that I have heard for years and years, since, you know, I started working with science and technology and innovation companies, which is very much, are you born a leader? Do you learn to be a leader? Do you train to be a leader? Is there a lecturer that you go to, or can you learn to be a leader from a mentor? Is that kind of debate of, you can train, or are you born a leader, or do you learn to be one? What do you think?
I don't think you are born a leader. I think it's a part of, it's also, I think this is very important for women as well, to make this distinction with leading and managing, because very often women are fantastic managers because they've had to, you know, be the domestic goddess and run all these other things.
Totally agree with that one.
And, you know, the multitasking bit, at risk of some gender stereotype. But it's also, they're also conditioned to think about others leading them. You know, I'll run the home, and husband will sort of, you know, go out and forage, not forage, you know, wrestle the lion and bring back the goodies and so on. And I just think actually women are fantastic as leaders, and we don't recognise and endorse the leadership that women show nearly enough. And it's one of the things, I'm always on the record as saying I don't actually like the term leadership, because I think it comes with all sorts of connotations which are about sort of, you know, me leader, you follower sort of thing. And actually, you know, we've all got, as I said repeatedly, lots of these elements of leadership potential in us, and most women have not had enough fanning of the flames of their leadership to really let it be a visible fire, you And there's a lot more that we could do just to celebrate ourselves as the natural leaders that we are. It's not to say you can't enhance and endorse, but I think one of the things I like about when we teach bits about leadership, and we use things like Daniel Goleman. I love Daniel Goleman because I like all his. And the point is not to say I'm going to be one of those, but to recognise when I'm already doing lots of those things, and then to think about the other people that you work with and see where they're doing lots of those things. And it just helps one to sort of really start to see how many different leadership styles are being lived around you all the time. And you know, then starting to believe, yeah, actually, yes, I can. So
it's a good point about the different styles too, because again, when we think about the stereotypical leader, I think people tend to think this person high up and, you know, godlike, and, you know, it's on a pedestal, right? And we see this with entrepreneurs as well, don't we? That the hero entrepreneur who's on the pedestal, and everybody's like, whoa, you know. But this bit about leaders, that there's so many different leadership styles and offshoots of that, you know, even with the sort of characteristic or defined leadership styles, you know. People aren't going to fit into one category neatly. So it's pulling out sort of the styles and the traits and the characteristics which actually work for you in your situation. Because again, you know, just because we talked about servant leadership, for example, that's not going to work in every situation. It's not going to work for every team. But bringing some of those characteristics out, you know, depending on the situation and the context, I think is really important. Your question was about whether you're born a leader, though, or whether you can learn it. And I think there's traits that people have as natural traits, which come out and can be enhanced. I think you can read all the books you like, but if you don't follow that advice, if you don't develop some of those traits or characteristics a bit more, you know, you may never get to that point of what you're idealizing. So I guess it's finding the right path for you. I think it can be learned. I think you learn it through experience. You learn it through not through reading, through various other things. But it, you know, depending on what you're aiming for, will depend on whether you're, you know, born leader or something like that.
Actually, I do agree with you. I think you're born with certain traits, like you're a risk taker, or you're a visionary. You know, you see the bigger picture, and or you kind of you take your own initiative. You don't have to wait for someone to tell you. You actually. But I think and kind of hit a point there in terms of women leaders and women managers and so on, and I think that's a complete full session in terms of what can we do more to encourage women in leadership roles as well. Ella, what do you think?
I think I agree with Placi and Leah. I think you're probably born with some traits so that will make you more inclined. But I actually think quite often it's experiences you're thrown into that develop those skills or make you realize you have them. That's, I think, certainly how I feel about it. I think I was very worried as a child. I was always a bossy girl. You know, I was one of the bossy girls because actually, I think it's because I'm an only child. So actually, I kind of had to walk up to people in the playground and say, will you be my friend? Shall we play this game? And then I think as a teenager, like that wasn't cool. That was being bossy. And actually then kind of life threw me a load of curveballs. And actually, I think that was when I discovered that I wasn't too scared of risks. I was fairly resilient, that actually being able to speak up helped other people. And then I think that gave me the kind of confidence to do it. And I think so often, you know, I teach management, you know, we talk about leadership all the time. And I actually think a lot of the time it is about seeing it in other people, feeling it in yourself. And then because I'm a nerd, I'll go away and then read the theory, and then it makes sense, and I'll go, right, okay, I can see that, but I can also see this next step, or that tool, or that person I might want to speak to, or that I want to read more about. And I think that's if you are a natural leader, that doesn't mean you're going to be the best leader for life. You've got to keep learning, like all things, and developing.
Yeah, that's true, and evolving, isn't it? Because otherwise you get stuck in the queue. We're going to move on to and talk about mentorship, and obviously as someone who is born with the traits of being a visionary and risk taker and so on, if you do get a mentor to encourage you, you actually become a much more rounded leader as such, the same as, you know, in your real life. I'm going to start with you, Ella. So have you ever had a mentor, or and you have mentor somewhere else, someone else? I mean, I have been a mentor for years, and I've been mentor. I've got a mentor. He doesn't know he's my mentor, but I pick up the phone and I actually use him. I could tell you his name and everything, but it's fine. But yeah, so Ella, have you mentored, and have you had a mentor?
So I have been on both sides of the relationship, and I think it is important that people understand that it is a relationship and it's backwards and forwards. I probably never had a formal mentor when I was younger, but I had loads of informal ones. And a bit like you, Placi, I think I've had really great mentors who probably would be terribly intimidated if I'd said, you are my mentor now, you know, we are going on this journey together. They would have ran a mile, but actually they were great. They're people that I can pick up the phone to now. I sometimes kind of think of them as like my personal board of directors who'll call me up on things, or I'll say, you're a little bit further down that road, what do you think? And I have learned so much from them, and I'm really grateful. And that gratitude has been what's brought me into mentoring myself. Is I'm a great believer in pay it forward. The amount of people who made that time, put themselves out for me, selflessly taught me things that, you know, without the fear that I might one day take their job. You know, it takes a really great person to do that, and I've worked with people that haven't done that, and so that's really made me want to mentor people. So, you know, part of my role at Brookes is mentoring people. I've been involved with Young Enterprise, which is secondary school students, STEM ambassadors, and then as a part of the 9% of engineers in the UK that are women, I've got a wonderful selection of fantastic female students who just drop me an email every 6 months and tell me what they're up to and ask me, you know, for advice. And I will, however busy I am, I will always take time, because people took that time for me. And all I say to them is, you make sure in 20 years time, when somebody asks you just to grab that cup of coffee, or can you send me a link to, you make sure you do it. That's your payment to me.
Thank you. I've got a funny story about mentoring, but I'll go to Leah and Anne first.
I love that description, Ella, of your personal board of directors. And I think that is so important, you know, and the fact that mentors it doesn't have to be a formal arrangement. You don't have to be a part of a program necessarily. You don't have to, you know, have set rules and you know, a mentor is anyone that provides that sort of advice and can support. And again, you know, I haven't had a formal mentor in that sense before, but you know, I can think, when I'm thinking about my board of directors, everyone's sitting around the table. You know, I've got people quite a bit younger than me. I've got people quite a bit older than me. I've got men, I've got women, I've got people of all ages and sizes and shapes and all that. And just think about how they've influenced me over the years and helped guide how I've got from you know, Ella, you were talking about being a bossy, you know, only child. Well, I was the shy middle child with a book, with my nose in a book all the time. So going from that person who couldn't say boo to a goose to someone who is now sitting talking about leadership and mentorship, you know, as part of a panel. So you start to think about how these people have shaped and changed your lives and helped you to grow. And for me, it still goes back to that bit about the safety, the psychological safety of being able to talk openly, freely, pick up the phone, you know, at any point. It's all so important. And having those people, you know, you can find them anywhere. They're part of your personal life, they're part of your professional life, they're all in there. And actually actively cultivating those relationships are where you'll get the most benefit from it. So regardless of whether it's formal or not, you know, you can find them anywhere, you can be part, you know, get them involved in all sorts of ways as well.
And have you had a mentor, or have you been mentoring someone that you want to discuss?
I guess over the years I've informally mentored many people.
You're only 25, Anne. You keep on
Yeah.
saying.
Sorry, I do sound like, you know, granny here. But you know, it's just reality. But I would say that the overall thing for me of I haven't had a formal program, and it's been really interesting to see the evolution of this whole thing about mentoring and what goes on, and working with industry people and hearing about their formal programs and so on. But I think, echoing what Ella and Leah were saying, for me, the mentors, many people have mentored me through my life, different dimensions. And for me, the important thing has been it's really important to be able to be clear in your own mind of what is it you're looking for from this relationship. I don't mean that in a manipulative sense, but just a clarity of knowing yourself and knowing this person and how much you can trust them and what they're going to be able to offer to you. I mean, that's what takes it from being just a casual conversational communication to somebody you really feel you can trust because they're on your side. It's not so much that they've got your back, that comes with friendship as well, but somebody who's going to mentor you is somebody who is going to be able to offer a really trusted view, and has been somewhere that therefore allows them to empathize with you, and vice versa. So I think that for me is it's deeply personal, whereas, you know, it's one of the things I sort of always make this distinction between mentoring and coaching. And with coaching things where you're looking at, you know, somebody who can just hold up a mirror for you and use all sorts of tricks and tools to do that. I'm not disparaging coaching. I think it's a fabulous thing to do, but it's very different to a mentor, which is this intensely personal sort of dimension to what you're doing. And I think it's really important to find people that you feel you can really connect with and ask them to be your mentors. And I always wonder when I hear about these industry programs where they sort of do all the matchmaking and things, and we've tried looking at it in the university, and it worries me somewhat because it sounds, again, it's mechanistic over something that should be personal. So I just put that out there as a slight caveat.
That's great, because I mean, from having, you know, all these years, I think the persons or the people that have mentored me without them being aware that they were mentoring me, it was those individuals that there was an element of trust that they will be telling me the truth, but also that they were my sounding board. You know, there was someone there that I could bounce ideas, and they will come out with contacts or ideas, ways to do things that they have done in the past. So there's that kind of experience that they have that, you know, that you can rely on. But I did have, and that's gonna kind of gonna go with a next question that I've got for you all is, I did have someone who very bravely years ago, it must have been about 12 years ago, emailed me after she came to a training workshop that I was doing, and asked me to be her mentor out of the blue. So the following day, she sent me an email and say, I really found you inspirational. Would you mentor me? And that was quite a shock to the system to be so direct with someone. And I thought, wow, what a brave lady she was. And in fact, we've become really good friends, and we still meet at Pret, Bicester Village, every so often. And we do a little bit of a mentoring sounding board things, and then we talk about life in general. So it's the way that it has evolved. But I mean, she came to me directly, but not many people know where to find mentors. So where would you be the space that you will say you can find a mentor?
So I am going to shamelessly plug Oxford Brookes University here. They have a wonderful...
Molly will be very happy.
brookes.ac.uk/mentoring, because I went on it today. And yeah, there is loads of different programs within the university that I think Molly will talk about later. But I did my undergraduate elsewhere and didn't have any of that. So I think it's amazing that there is this resource in Oxfordshire that we can all tap into. Again, kind of on that formal side for younger students, things like STEM ambassadors and, you know, the WISE program if you're in engineering, or Young Enterprise if you're in business. Actually, they have formal programs, and they also are just a really good gateway into meeting people who are generous with their time and, you know, like sharing their experience. So I think getting involved with those kind of programs as well. And a bit like you, Placi, I've had emails out the blue, and I've said yes to some and no to others, because sometimes, you know, it is a two-way street. It is a commitment you are making energetically, time-wise, you know, reputationally. Sometimes if you're going to be introducing them to other people, it has to be right. And I have said no to a few people because I just thought, actually, I'm not the right fit for you, and it would be a disservice to not do that. But you get a lot of credit for putting yourself out there and saying that.
Definitely. And Leah, are there any places where people attending the seminar today or watching the recorded version where they can find mentors?
So depending on, again, like Ella's plugged the Brookes one, the Brookes program, you know, we've got various mentoring programs in the university as well. I won't shamelessly plug them as well as Ella did, because I think this is a Brookes audience more. But the other thing I will say,
anything for 30 seconds. We're not going to penalize you. We're here to learn and share.
The thing that I would plug is actually, you know, like the ones that have approached you both in terms of being a bit shameless with it. You know, LinkedIn is a great place to meet people. From that, you know, you can go, you can. I'd hesitate to use the word stalk, but you can go and you can find people whose jobs sound interesting, you know, and one of the best pieces of advice I got was think of where you might want to be in 5 years and go and find that person on LinkedIn and connect with them and ask them for a coffee. I mean, the worst that happens is they won't connect with you and you won't get a coffee. The best that happens is you get both of those and you have a sounding board immediately about someone or something that you want to do perhaps in the future. Now that obviously, if you don't know where you want to be in 5 years, it's a little bit trickier, but it still applies in that you see someone with a job that sounds really interesting, or someone that's gone on a trajectory that perhaps you have as well. So having that in your mind, you do have to be brave. You do have to be bold and be willing to put yourself out there. And it can be quite scary to do that. But you know, the worst that's going to happen is someone's going to say no to you. You know, and if you're bold with it and you put together, you know, that plan of saying, actually, your LinkedIn looks amazing. This is what I want to achieve. I'd love to just have a coffee with you and talk about how you got there. You know, it's quite simple in that, and maybe that's not quite mentoring in the strictest sense, but it can lead to that. And so, use your contacts, use your networks, use LinkedIn. You know, there's ways of finding. They're all around you. Everyone could potentially be a mentor to you if in the right context and the right thing.
And do you want to plug one of the ones that you're working on at all?
Well, I guess the programs that we run at the moment for women in entrepreneurship, so Rising Wise, which is a program for our postdoc women, which we run jointly with Cambridge, because we're being the change we want to see. We're collaborating, not competing, and which Placi very generously contributes to. And we have developed things there so that there is a sort of natural progression for mentoring with the various participants from industry and so on as well. So that's one direction. I'm also aware that somebody's put something in the chat saying, what's the most rewarding part of being a mentor? And I would just sort of say in answer to that, for me, I think that it's just the fear, at the risk of sounding really naff, you know, it is just the pleasure of feeling you've been able to help somebody. And, you know, that it does give you a good glow at the end
Warm
of the day.
and fuzzy feeling is what we call it.
Yeah, and what's nicer than to feel that you may have made a useful contribution to somebody. So I think, you know, that's thank you.
put myself on unmute as well. No, that was brilliant. We'll go. I think we'll go to the questions and answers after this. I've just got one more final question for everyone, and I might add to a couple of them. I might add to this one. So there is a lot of people that we've done leadership, we've done management, we've done mentoring, and then we've got coaching. So there is again, I think it'll be quite useful for everyone to understand the difference between coaching and mentoring. And do you want to add to that one? And I can add to it as well. I think you've said already it's about tools. They've got programs that you can progress, but maybe you can elaborate on that one for a minute.
Yeah, well, I'm very keen as well on developing coaching skills in everybody, because we can all coach each other, and it's peer mentoring and peer coaching, I think, are both really helpful things to develop, and not see it as, again, hierarchical. This is all, how can we reach out and pull each other up within the team and beyond. So I think the thing for me about, again, mentoring, as I've said, I see as very much a sort of personal, relationship-based. As others have said, I look at the people who look like I want to be, and I can go and talk to them and work out what, how that's worked and what's happened for them, and that what I might learn from that and the conversations that we have. Whereas if I'm coaching or I'm being coached, I don't have to have any sort of real shared experiences with the person who's coaching me. It's a question, or who I'm coaching. It's a question of me just asking good, reflective questions of them and holding them to account for themselves, rather than trying to share my insights in any way. So I think it's they're very complementary, but very different. I don't know, Placi, what would you say?
I mean, the way in which I differentiate, and again, I have acted as both. So for me, a mentor is a volunteer person who's got experience, who is a sounding board, who is willing to have, to share that with you. But there is not such a thing as they don't set goals for you, or there is not a milestone that you have to then come back and feed back to them. Interesting that you mentioned peer groups. Peer groups are a great way of going into a group of like-minded people, throw one question, get feedback back, get that feedback, and then have different options that you can go and execute afterwards. I'm a great advocate of peer groups, actually. Coaching is more, for me, you're a coach, you're certified, it tends to be your career. Most of the coaches that I know is their career, is their job, is what they like doing that for a living. They have a program, a process of tools that they give you for you to get to a milestone and then eventually to achieve a goal. So whereas I will be mentoring someone and have a conversation about the business plan or something very much that is personal as well as work, when we do Rising Wise, I coach on the presentation skills. So I give them the tools to get better and to get out of that shell, to be able to present. So I'm coaching them on the presentation skills, on the public speaking skills. So the goal is they're able to do a presentation with the tools that I give them, which will benefit them in order to achieve that goal. So that's how I see it. I don't know whether any of you, whether Ella or Leah want to add to it or not.
I think someone mentioned the fact of holding up the mirror to you. And I think that for me is a really good distinction, that a coach is someone that is throwing questions back at you for you to answer. Whereas when you've got a mentor, they're often the ones helping you to answer the questions. So it's a slight distinction, but a mentor will use their experience and their what they know and what they've experienced to help you, to give you advice, to help you look at advancing to the next stage. Whereas a coach will say, we'll hold up that mirror and ask you the questions that you can find the answers yourself. So I think that's it. I agree. I think it's usually the paid versus unpaid, but although there's paid mentors and stuff as well. So it just depends. But yeah, I think that bit of the coach doesn't give you the answers. They tell you they help you find the answers. The mentor is more likely to give you their answers that you then adapt for yourself.
Thank you. I've got one final question, then we're going to go into the questions and answers. So we'll try to do this one in 2 minutes, and then we'll go. So we've talked about one-to-ones, a lot of one-to-ones here. We haven't really talked too much about teams and group of founders. And on this subject of the coach, do you think a coach what are the benefits, or do you actually think that a coach could coach a team, a group of founders? And if so, what do you think are the benefits? Because there's quite a difference actually in that.
Yeah, I work with a lot of kind of founding teams, and I think actually a coach is a wonderful idea. If it's you have to be in the right place, and you all have to want to participate. It's a little bit like therapy. You have to admit that you want to do it for it to be effective. But I actually just think having somebody that has that mirror and can turn it around, because so often entrepreneurship is just so absorbing, and you can end up in your little own echo chamber of you and your team and your investors. And actually having somebody with that real skill set, as Anne said, it is a skill set, it is a profession in a lot of cases, who can actually come in and offer that accountability and that independence, and it doesn't have a vested interest in your share price or your next seed round, but or even rely on you to get the next job. I think it can be a really fantastic way, because teams change often in the early stages very quickly, and it can be really easy to lose that vision or find yourself a little bit out of depth. And I think actually having a strong coach from the beginning would really help.
Thank you. Anne, Leah, do you want to add, or do you want to go into quick questions? I
just wanted to quickly add in here, Placi, that I think that just building on what Ella said, I think the other great thing about having somebody there coaching you and exposing you to some of those coaching techniques really helps with the team, because you can start to coach each other a bit more. And it's that sort of, again, the learning, whilst not trying to become a professional coach, just learning how to coach each other over things, to ask those questions in that way can really help the dynamics of a team. So I think it's a win-win from that point of view as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that one. Molly, are you happy for me to move into the questions and answers? She's nodding. It's a yes.
Yes, please.
I'm going to go with the top from top to down. So we've got one around the qualities of a strong leader. And what does a strong leader look like, and how do you move away from a manager to be more of a leader? Okay, I'm going to go to Leah on that one.
So I think we kind of touched on the qualities of a strong leader in the first question, and I think again this is going to be a wholly unsatisfactory answer, but what does a strong leader look like? It really does depend on the context. We talked about someone who is, really strong and leads the charge, and, but if you're leading a group of introverts, it doesn't work, right? And in the context, depending on the business, depending on the setting, it doesn't work. And equally, if you're a servant leader in a group of alpha males, what's going to happen there? There's a good sort of a wheel that talks about the different types of leadership styles. Now, that's not Goldman, is it, Anne? I can't remember if that's one of those ones, but I never remember names and things like that. But there's a good sort of 7 or 8 different sort of leadership styles. And reading some of those sort of styles and what sort of context those go in, I think is really helpful to see where, if you're thinking of yourself as a leader, how that fits in. Now, I'm not saying you have to fit in with a leadership style. You definitely pull different tactics out, but it is somewhat according to your context. if you don't fit into your context, then you need to either change, you probably need to change the context somewhat. The question of moving away from a manager to being more of a leader, some of that comes with that sort of natural tendency. And there's another question further on in the chat about introverts. So I'm a bona fide introvert. I don't look like it often. People often say, there's no way you're an introvert, but I am very, very much an introvert. And so some of those qualities of being able to move from someone who, is more of the manager, looking at the details, focused down into what you're doing, to someone that is thinking more visionary or being more bold with things. Some of that, I go back to my comment about the psychological safety of that feeling of being supported, of having people around you that can help you with that. That isn't always the case. I'm not saying you have to have other people around you to be able to do that, but certainly it does help to feel supported, to know that if something goes wrong, someone's there for you, that can back you up, that can support. And then that helps to grow your confidence. It helps to grow your experience and skills and all that. And so I think of myself, 7 years ago when I started, and I was very quiet. I was very, I had to go around and talk to everyone. I was hoping my job was actually going to be sitting in a cupboard building a website. But no, I had to go around and talk to everybody, from students right up to pro-vice chancellors, as I said. So for me, it was that experience of being able to do all those things, having to do those things and dealing with it and being friendly and nice and all those sorts of things, which has helped me think through and become a better manager. And I wouldn't necessarily say I'm a leader, but I think that getting those skills of thinking vision, thinking long-term, bigger picture, I think has really helped from those experiences and talking to people.
Thank you. Ella, I'm gonna go to you and ask you, what was the one challenge that you experienced being either a leader or a manager, and how do you overcome it? And then I've got a little bit of an answer for the introvert. I'm very mindful I'm running out of time, so go on, Ella, if you want to give us your experience quickly.
I'm going to give us a 2-for-1 answer on this, because I think actually the challenge that I had was that I didn't distinguish the two. I ended up running somebody else's business in my kind of mid to late 20s, and I came in to be what I thought it was going to be, a management job, and it turned into a leadership job, and I frankly was woefully underprepared for both, and I lost myself in it, and I really struggled. In retrospect, I learned a lot from it, and I think it's made me better at both of those things now. But I think I was just so confused about what I was supposed to do and what outcomes I needed and how I was going to do it. And I felt like I ended up doing a really bad job of being both.
Bless you. You do a great job, believe me, you do. On the introvert side, I learned something the other day. I can't remember where it was. It's probably somewhere that I was very curious about. And it was about introverts. And obviously, through the pandemic and the lockdowns, it was very much saying we've all become introverts. And there was some scientists saying, actually, we are all introverts. We just learned the social skills. Very few of us are born with the social skills and the desire to engage with others. We're all, through learning the social skills that our parents or our education system gives us. And some of us have learned that we need to be sociable, and that's our balance. So we call ourselves extroverts. So and going back to it, I actually agree, I'm an introvert, but I just need that social interaction. And then people think I'm an extrovert, but I'm quite happy being on my own. So, I learned that one the other day, and I just thought it was worth sharing. In terms of was the most rewarding part of being a mentor, Anne has already answered that question. But Ella, Leah, quick one.
I think it restores my faith in the future. It particularly in COP26 week, it can feel very doom and gloom, but actually being involved with and all ages of people, but just being around people who are motivated and curious, I love it. I just think it gives me such faith that there is good, positive things and people wanting to make a difference, and that lights me up inside.
Leah, thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's you get so much out of it yourself as well, talking to people that are asking to be mentored as well, that you learn a lot about yourself, about them, about the whole relationship sort of thing. So, you know, I always come away for it going, oh, as Ella said, it's such an uplifting, it's such a wonderful thing, knowing that you're helping someone or discussing. And as I said, I learn just as much about myself as I do about them.
It's quite a self-learning journey being a mentor, actually. I think it's just being able to know you've made a difference to someone. You know, it's that kind of I'm happy sleeping at night knowing that I've made a difference to someone and I've helped them. So it's about giving back to the community, the society, whatever it is that you can, and feel, you know, that kind of warm, fuzzy feeling. There's something on the chat about where you can find a list of coaches and so on. And Leah has already touched on LinkedIn. There is plenty of LinkedIn groups, and I think I follow so many now, and I find it really useful. I follow loads of women in business groups, science and technology, science and innovation groups, and so on. And all of them, from time to time, put really useful information. For Oxfordshire particularly, you've got the Oxfordshire Local Enterprise Partnership, which has got a plethora of mentoring programs, peer mentorings, one-to-ones, coaching programs. Brookes has got certification as well, which we're all very excited about. Oxford University, the Side Business School, Oxford Foundry, they've got loads of coaches that they're available. So I think you have to do a little bit of research. LinkedIn is a great place to start. Go and follow some groups that you are finding interesting and they're local to your area, so you don't have to travel too far to see your coach if you're doing physical meetings. But if it's online, I'm coaching 2 companies, one in Chile and one in Mexico, through the Santander Global Mentoring Program, and in Spanish. So this is going to be a one-off first for me this weekend, and I'm already getting palpitations just thinking about trying to work out the time difference is just getting me stressed about. But yeah, so I think there's so many opportunities there, and with the internet, you've got them there, and you know, at the tip of your fingers. Anything to close around before Molly says time is up? I think I've anything that you would like to share, Ella and Leah?
I think I'd just say, overall, I think the important thing for anyone wanting to flourish as an entrepreneur, as a leader, as a mentor, or whatever, is to be as authentic as you can be. If you're being yourself and you're being true to, you know, what you really, your own values, then whatever anybody else has to come and say, you're standing 4 square, as it were, and well rooted. So, you know, whether you're an introvert, an extrovert, or like me, an ambivert, Google it if you haven't looked up that one. You know, that would be my little takeaway.
That's great. Well, I think we've come to the end. That's been such an interesting discussion and great point to end on. And I have put the Brookes Connections link in the chat, which is the mentoring scheme that we're running at the moment. So do have a look at that if you'd like to be involved with the alumni to a student e-mentoring, or it could be alumni to recent graduates. So we've got a good 450 mentors on there ready to be requested. So it's not an auto match, you have to ask and select and they'll decide. So that's a nice piece, that it has that sort of flexibility for the mentees to decide and the mentors to say yes. So it's good to have a little look. That's my little plump at the end there for it. But you know, it's been great, and I know we're a little bit over time, but you know, what an interesting discussion. And yeah, looking forward to hearing more from everyone. And in respect of the Oxford chapter, look at us online. You'll have emails sent for the programme next year, and we've got a LinkedIn group as well, Brookes Oxford Chapter, I think it is. So it's the alumni chapter. So do link up with us there, and we look forward to seeing more of you all, basically. And it's been a really lovely evening. Have you got a last?
Can I just say thank you to Ella and Leah and Anne, because they have given us a lot of their experience, but also personal experience, which is always very appreciative, and it goes down to being authentic and being natural, and that's an energy that you're never going to go wrong with. So thank you, Ella and Leah, and whoever watches this or is here at the moment, find us on LinkedIn, connect, and just get in touch if you wanted to follow this app. And Molly is the right contact for Brookes, or Ella as well. So thank you very much, everyone.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.